Good evening, everybody. This is John with WIO Support, coming to you live from various places through the world, through the power of the internet and through the power of video, which is awesome. We've got a fantastic conversation coming up today. Unfortunately, we're missing Jackson. He's out due to illness, but wish him well. On deck with us, we've got Mike.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And as always, we've got Artie running the show in the behind the scenes or behind the computer. He'll pop out every once in a while and say hi.
Doing finger guns, you just can't see it.
Oh, golly. How to get demonetized in the first 60 seconds. That's great. Finger guns. That's okay. We got community noted on the last one because of our discussion. So, yay that. I don't want to revisit that, but let's just say very, very carefully and very simply, science should involve discussion, not conclusions without discussion. Even if it is the conclusion, discussion should still be embraced, had, and then shut down appropriately. So, whatever it takes, keep the science going, guys. Well, today we've got some fantastic conversation topics. Biggest thing on my mind is companies are now suing DNS providers to shut down pirate websites. Now, just on first blush, Mike, what do you think about that?
Okay, define pirate. Are we talking about websites that are distributing pirated software? Is that what we're talking about?
Um,
Videos, movies, some
Videos and
software.
Streaming.
movies? Okay. So pirated works
Yep.
in general. Okay.
So they're taking aim at the DNS providers to say delist this name.
That doesn't shut down the site though, because I can
Nope.
always access it with its direct IP address.
Yeah,
People can
yeah.
just start sharing public IP addresses and say, hey, so where's free Disney or whatever it is now, and just say spit out a IP address. Maybe even if it changes every now and then, I'm sure there's still underground forums and relay chats and whatever where people are sharing that kind of information. So is this really going to help?
Artie, what's your thought?
Well, considering how easy it is to register a new domain, it's kind of redundant, and it the methods that they seem to be going for with a lot of these are scattershot. It's not pinpointed. They want to. They're trying to think of it like fishing. They're casting a wide net, hoping to get a little tiny guppy.
Mm-hmm.
And the guppy is the one that's going to get through the net, but you're going to catch so many other things that you weren't intending to catch. And, a lot of innocent sites are going to get caught up in it because, you know, if it's like the pirate name dot service dot com or dot whatever, um, they're not going to be targeting just that front part. They're going to be targeting the entire domain. So if somebody is hosting something, um, and the company that's hosting it doesn't know the content that's being hosted. Like, do you think GoDaddy really knows everything that's hosted on its servers on its database?
Oh
They
no, no,
should,
no. But
They
but they
should.
don't.
they'll
So
do takedowns when law enforcement says, "Hey, here's
yeah,
a site that's propagating, hacking materials or whatever." FBI seizes domains on a constant basis, appropriately, I should say. But yeah, it's you've done a little bit of research on this already on all the other methods that are being used, but I just want to have a high level discussion of we've got legislators, we've got well intentioned people trying to use technology to solve problems in ways that they don't understand. Mike, just like you said, just start going by IP address and then change the IP address. Or Artie, you said just change the domain, register a new domain. If they're moving at the speed of court orders or legislation, it takes days, sometimes weeks. They'll have a couple new sites set up very quickly.
Along those lines, I was doing a little research myself before we got on here, just in general. And, you know, one of the methods, like I did a search on ways to block a website, right? And there's a lot of third-party services out there. We're not going to talk about any specific ones right now. But one of the methods that I saw come up a lot was, and the question came up a lot, like in different Reddit threads or other forums for system admins and things like that. And go modify the local computer's host file, right? And that seems like a tedious thing, but if for example, you're at home, you're trying to protect a family computer, it's a single computer,
Hmm.
then that is a method. You can modify the host file, which will then alter the basically it's like a name service that runs on your computer, and that name service is checked first locally on your computer before it reaches out to the assigned domain name server assigned to your ISP or whatever you have programmed into your router or other system, right?
Hmm.
And there are people that maintain lists to be used in your host file. And there was a suggestion in this particular thread that I was reading, um, that you go, hey, here's one that will block sites of questionable content, you know. And I went and I looked at it. It's hosted on GitHub, and in the comments, the author of it says, "These are all the ones I could find." And the thing is 20,000 lines long. Now, granted, that's also to account for because many bigger websites might have multiple domains or subdomains in order to distribute their content globally, right? And share the load balancing of so much demand. And so you have to block each one of those individual domains one by one. But 20,000, I mean, that's a lot. And then the other thing I noticed was that the file was last updated in 2021. So I'm like, this is already like 3.5, 4 years out of date. Like, does half of this even like, I'm sure a good number it probably still applies, but people build websites and create domain names all the time. How do you keep up with that? And so I agree with Artie that, changing a domain name is one really easy workaround, and nobody's ever going to catch up to that. It's just too much, way too much to handle.
So you could have like mypiratewares.com gets redirected. So mypiratewares.au or .ca or any of those others can get registered pretty quick.
Assuming you're following the rules and you are a resident of those country codes, that's what you're supposed
Oh,
to
these guys
do.
totally follow the rules.
And yeah, they totally follow the rules, right? Yeah, huh,
Well,
yeah.
chances are they've already pre-registered some domains to, you know, preempt takedowns.
Well,
That's could be true, yeah.
well, and I was talking with Artie beforehand. Some of these countries are kind of getting ahead of themselves. Their legislation is trying to shut down VPN access. So if you use a VPN to get around, um, you can't get to those sites because the VPN provider also blocks things.
Well,
Uh,
they're
VPNs aren't designed to do that.
they're attempting to get VPNs on board with site blocking so that
Mm.
the site will not be viewable through the VPN, but that defeats the purpose of a lot of these VPNs where they're not designed to be monitoring what you are doing. And in order
Mhm.
to implement that, it's going to require monitoring what the users are doing. So it's
Which is
counterintuitive.
only a good thing for the world to be monitored, right? We know you're not doing anything wrong, but we're just going to make sure by watching everything you do. And that's why we bought a VPN in the first place, right? You know, if these governments were really as smart as, you know, I shouldn't be insulting to them or anybody to compare them against, but if these guys were really smart, they'd start their own VPN service, make it dirt cheap, subsidize it, and track everybody that's using it.
That could work, but you would need to have people sign up, and
Mhm.
usually people that are moving in those circles, they do not trust government entities already.
Oh, no. Just put like 45 shell companies, so it's owned, but it's not owned by the government. Anyway, just floating
You mean like
thoughts.
Tor?
Yeah. Yeah, where the government's funding it and the government's also trying to break it.
Yeah.
That's how that boggles my mind. You know, I will say this. My perspective on it is we shouldn't use technology to solve a behavior problem. If we're trying to fix behavior by using better behavior on a computer and force that behavior, you've just changed the incentive. So now you have two problems. You have the problem of the behavior, the want, need, and desire of somebody to make something happen, and then you've got the security challenge that prevents that desire from coming to fruition. So they're going to spend some time hacking their way around it to get what they desire. Whereas I think if you did proper police work, you know, good detective work, good tracing and methods like that, you could find out who these people are, you know, de-anonymize them and track down those handful of people that are causing the problem for everybody. Just my thoughts.
Thing that crops up with that is also it's not necessarily in the country that these laws are being written in. Because you know, something might be like the big one right now is football or soccer for any of the American viewers.
It's a good thing we're in
Biggest game
America.
in the world. And you've got people that are watching it and say Italy does not want a pirate stream of any of the shows that the broadcasts going out. If they're not located within Italy that they're getting the signal from and broadcasting from, the Italian laws aren't going to necessarily apply.
Well, and even international laws stop applying to countries that just don't agree with those laws. So, I mean, it's one of those that let's roll back. The internet was founded as an open source, anybody can do anything system. It wasn't designed as a lockdown method that prevents people from doing things. It was empowerment, not punishment. It was empowerment and not shut down access. It was everybody can get to all knowledge because we should be good people, good citizens, putting good things out there. Now, watching a football / soccer match, maybe. I mean, I think there's some philosophical arguments on how much they're charging to watch that game. Mike, you remember back in the day, pay-per-view?
Oh
If you
yeah.
order that with your cable box,
Mm-hmm.
how much
Is
was
that
a boxing fight back in the day?
Oh, I don't remember, but isn't that still a thing?
It is still a thing for some things like
For
wrestling and
something.
whatnot.
Yeah. Um,
And they make a lot of money doing that.
yeah. I never we never spent any money on a pay-per-view type of deal. Like
Same here.
it's either it was included with our subscription to what we were getting or we just didn't watch it,
Or you can
you
watch
know.
static and try and see the lines in between and maybe hear the announcer.
It wasn't static, it was just scrambled.
Yep.
And
Now,
that was kind of a fun deal too.
the one
Try
that
to
I remember when it comes to pay-per-view is movies.
Hmm.
You know, but before the model that we've got now with streaming services, and you know, it comes out on the streaming services like 3 months after it's premiered in the theater. You had the movie release in theaters, then you had the pay-per-view release, and then you had a few weeks after that the VHS or DVD release. And that pay-per-view release was, like $10, like $5, $10, and you get to watch the movie, I think once.
Just the once.
Yeah,
Just that once.
no pausing, no nothing like that. So if that's what they charged for a movie back then, you can imagine what they would charge for, say the Super Bowl if it were not broadcast on broadcast TV.
So we're talking technology here, guys. Um, one of the originals, and I'll just say satellite in general, one of the original satellite boxes would have pay-per-view on a dial-up basis. So you click buy, it queues it in its memory, and then midnight or whatever, it sends out the signal, goes to the billing team, and gives you access. When it was first introduced, like version 1 of the box, um, it didn't stop working if it couldn't talk to home base. This guy
Oh,
had $2,000 worth of pay-per-view sporting things queued up in the box. He said, if you ever plug it in, we're going to have a problem.
yeah. Just authorize it, then unplug it, huh? Wow.
Yep. No, no,
That's
no.
way.
Wasn't authorized. It was you hit
Oh,
the button and the box decodes it and then queues up the message to say, hey, this person purchased it. And it would send out over modem later
oh.
that night. So he just never connected the modem.
So it stacked up the. Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, they watched all the boxing matches, all the sporting events, all those things.
Hmm.
Don't advocate it. But if we're talking about technology fixing problems and fixing behaviors, we should build the technology right out of the gate, not just get it out the door to get it to market faster. But
I
I
think
digress.
one of the issues with that technology is that you've got people that are not actively working in technology wanting to dictate what technology can do. I mean, it goes back to largely the Napster debacle,
Hmm.
and the music
Mr.
industry
Buckle.
they did not want to embrace the new technology, and that historically has been most of the music industry's attempts at stuff. Oh, you can't have a tape deck because you'll record the song off the radio and you won't have to buy an album. It's what, nearly 60 years later, we're still out there buying albums.
I love the analogy of we can't let people watch movies at home because they'll stop going to the theater. Well, that's like saying we can't have restaurants because if we can't let people work at or make food at home because then they'll stop going out to restaurants.
The theater experience is still far different than anything I can do at home right now. And actually, I read an article about that, which was interesting. About it actually has nothing. the The topic of the article really has nothing to do with this topic. The topic of the article was about why more and more people are turning on the subtitles when they watch
Hmm.
stuff at home, especially movies. And the answer is that movies are built around the theater experience, not
Hmm.
around the home experience. And so you go into these theaters, and the high-end theaters that these movies are built around, we're talking as much as 128 channel audio, right? With all different ranges, subwoofer, bass and treble and tweeters and the whole works, right? And so the audio is engineered specifically for that experience. And then when they have to make a home release, whether it be through streaming, a DVD, a Blu-ray, or whatever it is, they have to mix that down to 6 or 7 or 8 different audio channels, depending on what kind of a system you might have, which is a far different that's far different than the 128 channels you're hearing in the theater. And so then there's compromises that have to be made. So as long as they're still pushing for, um, what should I say, like an elite experience, that you can only get by paying your money and getting in to have that experience. I don't think that there's any worry about, you know, bringing it into somebody's home that's gonna make that business go away.
Hmm. That was actually the genesis of THX.
Mhm.
When they were starting to release Star Wars, they realized not all theaters were up to snuff on the experience. Some were just get one speaker up front and it's mono and it's not that loud and it sounds like underwater phone booth kind of experience. And so
Right.
they built that standard, and Dolby took that over and made it bigger, and they all started competing for who's got the best audio.
I had a friend that, it was some years ago now, it's probably been more than a decade that it happened, but it was for some movie that had just been released in theaters, relatively recently, and I think it was nearing the end of its theatrical run, and everybody was expecting it to come out very soon on DVD or whatever.
Hmm.
But he's like, "Yeah, we watched it at home with this. I found this website and da 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 da, which is one of these websites we're talking about." And I said, "So how was it like watching that?" He was like, "Oh, it was terrible. The video quality was horrible. The audio quality was horrible because I don't remember if he said like it was like someone had taken their cell phone and basically just, recorded the screen in a theater and everything, but because of that, like, it just totally shot the whole quality of the movie.
Hmm.
It was like, was it even worth it? Just because you could see it before it was on DVD, like, was it even really worth it? It's like, "Nah, it wasn't really worth it."
Yeah, and that's the kind of I'll say garbage quality that flooded the pirate sites back then,
Mhm,
and which I think is actually a good way of doing things. Because if you put the garbage quality out, then people will want the good quality.
mhm,
Personally, if there's a good quality thing, I will pay for it. If I'm gonna watch, let's say, oh, let's pick on Disney for a minute, The Incredibles.
mhm,
If I'm gonna watch that in high quality, high def, I'm gonna pay for it. But if I'm paying good money for low quality, that's when I actually have gripes. Louis Rossman. Am I saying that right, Artie?
Mhm.
Yeah, he has some gripes about that. He's paying for top quality and he's getting 720
When he
streaming
was paying
quality
for 4K.
because his rig doesn't have all the bits and pieces set up. He wants to watch it his way. So
It was
he
because it
makes
was going through a computer and not because it was going to a widescreen TV.
an approved streaming device.
Yes.
And I see his point that, if you're paying for the service, you should be able to enjoy the content as you are. I also see the artist perspective that if I'm part of the Incredibles team and I'm getting paid per view on that, then I want to get paid per view on that. So it's an interesting juxtaposition for the world. How do we prevent technology from getting ahead of technology and empowering people to do what they want instead of, cooperatively enjoy what we have in our capitalist society? We pay for stuff, we get stuff, we move forwards. I don't know the answer to that. I would love to talk to people on both sides and just say, "Hey, what's your thoughts? Is piracy worth it? Is it a good thing? Does it make better content? Doesn't it promote Hollywood to put out the next best blockbuster movie if they're not making any money because everybody's pirating it?" Conversely, if we're getting garbage quality and we have to turn on subtitles, why are we paying for this?
yeah.
Every time
Um,
somebody says that they've got to turn on the subtitles, there's one director that comes to mind because every single film of his that I've watched, the explosions at like the lowest volume will wreck your ears, but the dialogue at the highest volume will not come through. And Christopher Nolan needs to learn how to do dialogue in his films better. That's
You
just
know,
my personal opinion.
the article I read specifically called him out.
Yeah,
That's
and
hilarious.
Yeah.
he's openly stated that if you're not seeing the theater, I don't
Mhm.
care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly where that whole thing came from about how the movie needs to be engineered for the theater experience, was exactly for that reason, and that whole thread right there. Yeah.
And I respect that. So from an artistic creator perspective, you're presenting your best work and you should have control over where that goes. And when he says, if you're watching it on TV, you're watching it wrong, I got to respect that because that's not what he designed his product to be. However, it's not in the theaters. None of his movies are in the theaters right now, are they?
I think he's got one coming out for the Odyssey.
Yeah, but I can't go into a movie theater, punch it up on Disney Plus and watch it.
I mean, you
I got to
could at
wait for it.
some theaters, but it would cost you like $800 to rent the theater.
Rent the theater and punch up whatever you want.
Hmm. Hey,
But
Mike,
it
I
has
got
to
an
be an
idea.
approved thing that they can actually stream there.
Nah, hire a guy to stand outside the door and say, "Where's your ticket?"
Mhm.
I've always dreamed of playing Xbox on a big theater screen like that.
But so going back to that, with watching something on Netflix, something
Mhm.
that I always was coming across, even with the TV shows that were being made for it, is that dialogue is low, everything else is loud. Like car crashes, explosions,
Mm.
even just like somebody dinging the elevator. It's that
It's an
respect,
assault on the ears.
yes. And I know I've read some of the theories about it being, like, well, if it gets broadcast on TV, they've got to have that difference so the commercials can be as loud as the loudest part of the show.
No, 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 no. There's all those conspiracy theories that they turn up the commercials. They don't. It's just you're if you're making a commercial, you're interested in making sure that that is clear, the enunciation comes through great, the jingle that you've written is memorable and audible across all your audience's devices. So you're going to tune that audio and you're going to tune that video to be exactly what your audience wants. Because these other shows are not written for or produced for the TV. The commercials are. The commercials are going to come through way better. So it's garbage in, garbage out. We put in a product that's not designed for that audience and it's going to be less than what the commercial is. Granted, if we're making a commercial for something, we're going to crank up the volume. Of course, I want to hear about the news serials. I want to hear about the new toy my kids can't live without while I'm down the hall in my office working on my computer, and the commercial echoes through the house, right?
You know what I miss? And I wish that we could get back to it. The Japanese commercials that were like 5 to 10 seconds long, and they had to get everything in there, and they were the weirdest things you'd ever watched.
Those were cool. You could do Micro Machines guy like that.
Micro Machines guy in a Godzilla outfit, yeah.
That's crazy.
But
So, okay, let's get back to the subject, right?
Yeah.
We kind of went down what the kind of use cases are of piracy and the fors and against and all that, but should should we bang technology into shape to make it work? Let's put real words to that. Sorry, guys. Should we use the legal system to force sick technology to work different?
yeah, because that's never gone wrong.
Well, the other option is, so obviously there's these websites, they're piracy websites. They are conducting illegal activity, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's unlawful to copy somebody else's work and distribute it, especially if you're making money off of it, but even just to distribute it because you're not licensed to distribute it. It's not an original. It's like a hacked version of it, which may mean that there's some loss of quality there.
Hmm.
So these are illegal sites. And obviously, the reason why they're coming up with this as an idea, as a solution, is because a more traditional solution of just shutting down said website is not working. Probably for the same reasons, because I get my website shut down, I can just go spin up another one with another domain name, and you know, and anymore, like with the cloud, um, you hear about court cases where somebody was found in possession of, right, illegal material on their hard drive or something, right? But if it's a website, who's in possession of the material? Now I know this is why ISPs and web hosts get really nervous, because they have very clearly in their terms of service to say, okay, by creating this account and clicking acknowledge, you agree that you're going to not use the service to do, and then they list a whole bunch of things that they do not want to see you doing,
Hmm.
and at the very end of that, or conducting any other illegal activity, in case that they haven't covered it all, you know, because they don't want to be caught up in the middle of that mess, you know, and
They don't want to be
it's,
named in the lawsuit.
yeah, that too. And so I can see why officials are having a hard time trying to shut these things down, because it's so elusive. It's like a cat and mouse game, and the mouse is just constantly on the move, almost one or two steps ahead of them every time.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's the case, would legal maneuvers, shutting down DNS and VPN, would that work?
Well,
I think I think it would
um,
have affect the casual pirates.
there is that. The instances that I have read about largely come from European countries that are trying to crack down on um, a pirate service that I'm not going to name just for the
Hmm.
sake of not naming
Mm.
it. Um, and they have tried going after people that produce the devices that people can connect, like a Fire Stick, but basically a hacked Fire Stick um, that allows them to access these streaming sites. And what has come back with a lot of the efforts with site blocking and trying to take down the websites directly, it's like a hydra. They bring one down and three or four more pop up,
Mhm.
and it's extremely difficult for them to maintain a cap on it.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
you put a legal restriction on things, and they're going to find a technical solution around it.
yeah, and they're trying to go after the VPN providers as getting them on board as an ally, and they're finding that what they are describing, what they're trying to convince the VPNs of doing, is the exact antithesis of what the VPN is designed to do.
Hmm.
It would be like, we are just designing this car, and it's going to be the best car ever, but it's an Edsel.
You can take it anywhere you want, except that road over there. Oh, and that road, and that drive-through. Anywhere else.
It's an off-road vehicle, but don't drive it off-road.
And we'll figure out more places that you can't go as time goes, and we'll expand that list as we see fit. And that's where I've got a problem, is who's in charge of that list. Okay, let's yeah, we've got a fantastic freedom of speech here in America, which is awesome. We don't know how blessed we are to have this kind of freedom. Not all countries enjoy this. But if not just the speech is censored, but the places where knowledge is censored, it could be a thing. And you can imagine all the, and I got to be very cautious on this because I don't want to flag anything, but all the disadvantaged minorities and all the things that they can do to help send information, share information. If we block those because somebody finds it not agreeable, that's the opposite. That's not a conversation. That's not communication. That's now uh, it's a path I don't want to see us go down.
It would be like blocking WhatsApp because a few people, well, more than a few people, but a very small subset of the users are using it for illegal methods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we shouldn't shut down the technology because there's a couple bad apples. We should go find the bad apples.
Hmm. As best as we can. And
Yeah.
even at that, like putting a face to a user account and attaching that to an actual physical human being, that may be part of the problem too, is that there's so much that can be done essentially anonymously, and so many tools that people can use to cover their tracks as far as masking their public IP address, where they were sitting, what internet they're connected to when they signed up for an account and built the website and uploaded all that content from. And then, maybe they're only there temporarily and then they move to a totally different location afterwards, and so having to chase that down, trace that down, I'm sure it's getting increasingly difficult because of the technology.
Well, let's put a fine point on this one. The Dread Pirate Roberts and the Silk Road.
Hmm.
He wasn't brought down by technology. He was brought down by good police work, good
Hmm.
investigations.
Yeah.
They thoroughly investigated and de-anonymized him, and then found a way to get his laptop away from him in a library so that they could actually get the evidence.
Hmm.
Good work. I mean, that's all I got to say is that's how we should be doing this.
I don't know.
There's bad
Probably the
people.
part
Go find
there's
them.
a part of me that's probably it's probably more of a pessimistic view that I don't know that I see it getting any better, but really the only way that these kinds of things are going to get shut down is if the demand is taken away.
Hmm.
People do it because there's a demand for it, and unless the demand goes away, it's going to be a very hard problem to contain and
Well, now
everything.
that was the beauty of all the streaming services. When Netflix went to a streaming
Hmm.
model,
Yeah,
piracy dropped off a cliff.
yeah, because then it's like we've got
I could go through the hassle of downloading a crap quality that doesn't have my subtitles,
right
that doesn't have things, and it's not designed for this. It's like you had a theater rip, or I could pay Netflix 12
and
bucks a month.
get the authorized, licensed, full quality version.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
One of the things that I have seen circling is piracy is not a um, piracy is caused by a lack of supply. So if
Mm.
something is not available, then that creates the pirate market. And one of the
Um,
reasons that piracy has gone up around the world when it comes to like digitally available things, region locking. If something was
Mhm.
not available in your country, people get VPNs to go into other countries to watch the Netflix that that country has because of region locking. There's stuff like
Mhm.
that going on. That still is an issue. And
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
well,
that's the genesis. The Go ahead.
so when I say it's a supply versus demand type thing, you've got people that want the item, but nobody has it available. And, I remember probably a long time ago, I was looking for a DVD for a movie, They Live. And the DVD had only been printed once at that time. So,
Mhm.
I could find it on eBay for like $300, and it's like, I love the movie, I don't like it that much, I will wait. I'm going to
I
have to
like it.
wait
I
for it to
like it
be
a lot. I
reprinted.
don't love it.
So, you know, not
Love
being
knows
able
no
to find
bounds
something,
except $300. That's too much.
yeah,
Yeah,
and you're not guaranteed that it's going to be a good disc because it's used.
Could be scratch. Could be.
and that brings up kind of a whole other aspect of the topic is what about stuff that's out of print that you can't find anymore, that it's not old enough to have gone to public domain, but it is so old that, like, what if it's like something that was only printed on VHS,
Hmm.
you know, and it never even made it to DVD, let alone Blu-ray or let alone to a streaming service, you know? And so I think that there's and we could get into the whole discussion now about places like archive.org and the work that they're doing because they've gotten themselves into some hot water a lot for on one hand it's in the name of preservation of knowledge and information, but on the flip side the corporations are like, wait, people still own copyrights on that and those copyrights have not expired, and that's a copyright violation.
And
Well,
I see both sides with archive.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to toss this out there because I know a bit about this. Um, they didn't go through the direct channels for it.
mhm.
And
Well,
that is one
that's
of the
true.
reasons that they are in hot water right now. And I think that if they had gone through direct channels, they wouldn't be where they are
Hmm.
legally and on the verge of being shut down if lawsuit goes against them.
Yeah, I mean, I would not want to be part of that lawsuit against the modern day Library of Alexandria. I
Yeah.
mean,
Hmm.
that is the repository all of us rely on for checking the validity of something. It is definitely. I mean, okay. Here's one. Let's call out to our government now to say make that a national thing. Like bring archive.org into the Library of Congress. Well, we'll have this podcast be the first one to declare that. Make archive.org part of the congressional library, just without the bureaucracy,
Right. Good luck with that.
right? But uh, there's a lot to be said about the work an artist makes. They should have right of where it's displayed, how it's displayed, what it should be displayed. Like, let's say Darth Vader. When you get Darth Vader on a movie set that is not a Star Wars film, which has happened a few times, you get a handler that says Darth Vader won't do that. Darth Vader doesn't drink tea. Darth Vader doesn't dance. Darth Vader doesn't do all these things. Here's what he does. That's what you get. There it is. The intellectual property is controlled, so you don't have Darth Vader with, you know, I take this from a meme, pouring water from a Brita filter in the ocean into a cup. I mean, like that's just not in his. That's not what he does. So if I created Darth Vader, I would say that's probably not what he does. I don't ever want to see that. I'm going to stop him. Bill Watterson with
Calvin and Hobbes.
um, Calvin and Hobbes.
Hmm.
He fights tooth and nail to get rid of all the pirated Calvins that are out there. Um, he won't publish it because he wants that property to be his presentation of it. I respect that. Buy his books. They're great comics. If you find a sticker with Calvin and Hobbes, it's not his. It's totally pirated.
Hmm.
But people want it. So, Artie, to your point, it's a lack of supply. There's not enough to go around to what people want. Now, in the artist's mind, they should control it. In our minds, we want to watch what we want to watch right now without restriction. Where's the happy medium?
I think for the happy medium, the thing that I would think of is the specialized edition Star Wars movies, since you've already broached the Star Wars subject. So the specialized edition was the re-release special with all the added extra footage that George Lucas did not have in the original films.
He didn't have the budget for it.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a different movie when you add that in there, and it's not Star Wars. It's whatever it was. Like Jabba the Hutt being a guy and then being replaced with the slug. That just did not look right in the original New Hope. So the medium is, once you put it out there, it's out there. And
It
that the
is.
artist control really stops after they release it. At
But should
least
it?
in that aspect of it. They should still have rights to the characters, all that other stuff. But once they release something out there, I'm thinking of Samuel Beckett. Samuel Beckett is a playwright. He was adamant about how his plays were performed. And any place that tried to deviate from how he envisioned it, how he wrote it down, they would get fined. They would get, cease and desist letters and a fine from his estate, basically saying, you did not follow our contract, therefore you're in violation. And
I know a theater that had to cancel production because of that.
yeah,
I don't know if it was his play, but there was one where there was a monologue where the guy has to light up a cigarette, and the city had just passed a no smoking ordinance.
yep,
And they tried everything they could to get, both sides to just give up the one light up of a cigarette. Can we have a prop? Can we do this? And it's like, no, you have to have an actual cigarette be inhaled by the actor. And the city said, you can't put that in a public space. It is illegal. So the only thing they could do is shut off the play. It's unfortunate.
So I feel that an artist's control extends only so far. And I'm speaking as an artist myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, once you put it out there, people will see it. People will copy it. Don't they say imitation is the highest form of flattery?
Well, and then this also could segue into another aspect of stuff we've recently talked about is what about training AI?
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic as well that's gotten people upset, especially artists. And I'm for the artists that, their works are their works. And if AI is imitate we kind of talked about it before that if AI is imitating that, is it devaluing what an artist does? Just the same way as, a piracy. It's, causing financial harm in some ways. So is AI piracy.
Well, and it's one of those interesting points. So watching a movie at home from a pirated resource, you're taking money away from that artist from getting paid, right?
Mhm.
Now, in AI, if you train off of all that artist content and everybody else's, and you sell that work, it's a derivative work off of the entirety of humanity, and you're making money from it. So now you're using them to make money for yourself. I've got a problem with that.
Mhm.
Or these pirate sites that charge, just a little bit of membership fee or whatever it is, however they monetize, they put ads on the screen. They're making money off of the pirated content. So I actually have a problem with that. I mean, if you're going to pirate it, do it for free.
Hmm.
I'm not suggesting getting pirate. I'm saying very clearly, don't pirate content. Don't share content. Follow the rules, guys. But if you're ripping off somebody's work to make money yourself, that's way too far.
Mhm.
I would make a comment on this, but I think it would take the conversation a lot longer than what we have left in our time.
Yep.
Yeah. No, this is a deep conversation. So let's put a bow on this. Let's go back to the original idea. Legislators, courts, they're all trying to control this. You can't control the technology, but you can. But then technology finds a way. it'll work through it. So what should we do? Should we have our technology set up so that legislators or somebody in a position says, I don't like this, make it go away, click a button, and the website's gone?
I am not one for any form of censorship, really. So I would not like that, and that really also comes down to whoever has the power to make that choice. If they don't like something, but it's not violating any laws, they can still make it go away.
That's where I've got a problem. It's because you can create a new law that, we got multiple cases in politics, and I will not reference any of those, where something was labeled misinformation and then come to find out, oh, actually, it was true. Could we not have a system that blocks misinformation just because I don't like what they're saying?
I think ultimately it comes down to it's an honor system, really. We just
Hmm.
all have to encourage people to be better people. I mean, even with the laws that we still have people who break the laws because they are not honorable people and they don't want to follow the rules. And, you know, just because that is there, that doesn't mean that we keep making tighter and tighter rules because a rule breaker is a rule breaker is a rule breaker. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just the way it is. Somebody who's bound and determined to do something is going to find a way to do it. And
Yeah.
so I think it just comes more incumbent upon the rest of us that we need to be better people and just be honorable and encourage others to do the same, really. And that's what makes it fun and happy and fair for everybody is when we can all just do the right thing.
Well, and have breadcrumbs to get back to people that are doing bad things.
Hmm.
It's that whole push pull between privacy and accountability. Anonymous. I think maybe we're coming up with a distinction here, guys. There's a difference between anonymity and privacy.
Hmm.
What I do on my computer, I should have control over what information goes in and out. I shouldn't have ads pop in I didn't ask for. I shouldn't have spyware on my computer. I shouldn't have any of that stuff, but I do. Uh, an- Anonymous. I mean, that's when you start unleashing the dishonorable peoples.
Hmm.
They can do things like the Silk Road. They can do things like uh, all the piracy websites sharing videos and things they shouldn't.
But it's a very, it's not a line. It's shades of gray, and
Hmm.
Well, it's a line, and it privacy should be something that could be theoretically poked into and looked at. Okay, so we've got Dread Pirate Roberts. He should have a right to privacy. He should be able to do whatever he wants. But when he starts breaking laws left and right, they can crack into it and take a peek.
yeah.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not saying we should have a backdoor for encryption. We'll talk about that next week. What I'm saying is anonymity might be the enemy of privacy.
Interesting.
It's an interesting thought. I haven't thought of that before. I like this discussion. This is a great discussion, guys.
It's a shame it's got to end.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. Mike, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Nope, I'm good. It's a great discussion, guys.
Yeah, we went around the world. We went from the best of the best, the altruistic, all the way down to the depravity of pirates and back again. So if you want to join us on the next one with encryption in mind and putting backdoors, sneak peek, Salt Typhoon exploited a backdoor in all our telecoms. If you want to hear about that, tune in next week. Until then, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Marty.
and we are out of here. Have a great one.